All right, I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's a good time to start, and especially after Biden's, 100 days. So we have a decent picture about what he's going to do. And I found this one, I think yesterday in Politico. It's kind of interesting because lately this has been going around about whether Biden is doing a good or bad job, or what the prospects is. Does the GOP have a good chance of attacking him or attacking the White House so they can get control of the House of Congress? So Biden is not a good bad guy. GOP rips up midterm playbook. Biden is proving to be less than an ideal foil, forcing Republicans to rethink the traditional formula for 2022. When the National Republican Senatorial Committee sought to attack four vulnerable Senate Democrats in a series of ads this spring, President Joe Biden was nowhere to be found. Instead, the NRSC juxtaposed photographs of the senators Ralph Warnock of Georgia, Mark Kelly of Arizona, Maggie Hansen of New Hampshire, and Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada next to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It's a phenomenon that's becoming increasingly pronounced as the outline of the 2022 midterm election comes into focus. Midterms are typically a referendum on the party in power, so the standard opposition party playbook is to make every down ballot race about the sitting president. But Biden's elusiveness as a target is forcing Republicans to rethink the traditional strategy. Interviews with more than 25 GOP strategists and party officials depict a president whose avuncular style means more uncle type or uncle like, and general bearing make him a less than ideal foil. He doesn't induce anger or rage, and at the moment his White House is relatively drama-free. Remember, I was saying that. I was saying that Biden's style and Biden's White House was relatively boring, and I thought that was a good thing. Remember, I said that a couple of months ago. I said that Biden so far was boring, which is drama-free, and I think that was a direct contrast to Trump's White House. I mean, really a direct contrast to Trump's White House. And I think that's what people are suffering from, that people like drama, especially black people. In response, Republicans are preparing to break with time-honored custom and cast the president less as the central character in the midterm elections than as an accessory to the broader excesses of the left. Biden is not a good bad guy, said Ed Rogers, the veteran Republican lobbyist and strategist. Obama was a hardy professor. The Uncle Joe life story that he has, the tragedy, the losses, the obvious empathy the man has, I think is all legit. So it's hard to demonize him. Former President Barack Obama, standing with then the traditional formula, worked spectacularly for the Republicans in 2010 when the GOP tethered Democratic candidates across the country to the then President Barack Obama's stimulus spending, health care plan, and arrogant governance. And it worked for Democrats 8 years later when they retook the House by turning the midterms into a repudiation of President Donald Trump. Now, however, Republicans are gearing up to run against everything from defund the police to socialism and cancel culture. They'll hit Biden on gun control, spending, and immigration. And if the economy stalls, they'll whack him for that too. But the emphasis will be less on Biden personally than it was on either Obama or Trump, Republican strategists and party officials say. That approach, currently under discussion with Republicans at every level and already visible in the GOP's early advertising, will shape the entire arc of the midterm campaign. It's risky. Though Republicans appear to be verging on taking back the House, that expectation is grounded in historical trends based on the opposition party's ability to bludgeon the president in his first term. But the GOP may have little choice. Because Biden is so boring, he's not as scandalous, said John Thomas, a Republican strategist who works on House campaigns across the country. Though Biden certainly is relevant as the head of the party in power, Thomas said, there are bigger boogeymen. We don't need him as our number one foil. Biden's public approval rating is hardly off the charts, hovering in the low 50s, but it's also unusually sticky, holding steady since the opening of his term. In addition, the lesson of last year's election is still fresh in Republicans' mind. From the Democratic primaries through the general election, they saw firsthand how difficult it was to drag Biden down, with their efforts to depict him as mentally unfit or corrupt is largely falling flat. Even Trump seemed stung by Biden's imperviousness, mocking his successor as saintly Joe Biden. Biden gives a fireside chat and the fire goes out, said former Republican Tom Davis, a Virginia Republican who served as a National Republican Congressional Committee chair. I mean, he does not invoke the strong emotion that Trump did. That is true. Loyalty to Trump remains the fault line for the GOP. As a result, Republicans aren't highlighting Biden but lumping him in with more polarizing figures like Pelosi, Senator Bernie Sanders, and progressive Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That is likely to remain true even when Republicans' criticisms are based on policies that are explicitly his. Earlier this year, shortly after Biden announced his $2 trillion plus infrastructure plan, Republican Tom Emmer, the Minnesota Republican who chairs the National Republican Congressional Committee, said he wasn't even going to blame Joe Biden because he doesn't know, instead portraying the president as an enabler of the socialist agenda. I don't think he's putting all this together, Emmer said. I think he's just a guy who goes out and reads off a script. This is coming from the far left. One veteran Republican strategist involved in down-ticket campaigns said the GOP will run in 2022 against the Democratic Party as a whole. It's less about vilifying one person, the strategist said. That minimization of Biden would mark a significant break from tradition. A president's approval rating has been closely related in recent elections to how well his party does in the midterms. In the last midterm election, Democrats tied Republicans running for everything from U.S. Senate to school board to Trump, seizing on his unpopularity to reorder the balance of power in Washington. People forget that Trump's approval rating did a deep dive after his first year. In part, the lack of focus on Biden reflects a degree of disorganization among Republicans, who are still preoccupied with their own intra-party skirmishes following the November election. Most recently, the ouster of Republican Liz Cheney of Wyoming from House leadership. The main problem is it's Biden and the Democrats versus two Republican parties. That's true. I never thought about that. Two Republican parties. Said Republican ad maker Fred Davis, with the GOP still mired in hostilities between Trump loyalists and its traditionalist wing. Another prominent Republican strategist acknowledged we are having a hard time focusing on Biden. Between the clown town in Mar-a-Lago and the controversy surrounding Cheney and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the strategist said, we look like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I agree with that. The lack of engagement with the president is already evident in early ads, where messages that will define the 2022 campaign are already being formulated. In Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican nominee governor, read a primary ad highlighting the Democratic Party's really out there socialist ideas, from defund the police to paroling cop killers and canceling Dr. Seuss, but without mentioning Biden. All right, it goes on and 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 on. It's a pretty long article. I'll put it up in the description and you can follow it. But yeah, this is just something that I kind of said. I think that we're so used to all the hype that Trump gets on a daily basis with his tweets and his rants and stuff like that, that we're used to being juiced up. And Biden is more typical. He runs the country with more of a typical style, which is more behind the scenes, even stuff that's going on with Israel. We think that the president should make an immediate announcement, immediate pronouncement, because that's what Trump would do. Trump would said something on the first day, and it probably would have been wrong. But Most presidents, even under something like this, a lot of this stuff is actually done behind closed doors. Just because the president isn't saying anything doesn't mean that something's not being done. And I don't know whether what's going on with between Israel and the Palestinians is right or wrong, or what they're trying to do as far as getting it squashed, whether the strategy is right or wrong, because we don't know what it is. But most of this stuff is actually done out of sight, behind closed doors and through back channels. Because you got to believe anything this big, the president is aware of it, and the president does do stuff behind in back channels and out of the eyes of the press. And Biden will do a lot of stuff like out of the eyes of the press. All of a sudden, the policy will just show up, and that has been typical of what he has done as far as president. Now, I hear a lot of hype that says Biden is the worst president in 50 years. No, or Biden is gonna trash this country and drag it back to the Stone Age. No. Okay. Biden is pretty middle of a road as far as a president is concerned. Is he the best president? Nope, he is not. Is he the worst president? Nope, he is not. But I think that the country right now, with what it's going through, needs a more of a calmer, stabilizing hand. He is not going to be FDR. Even the people on the left are not happy with him. That's when you know a president is pretty much down the middle. The right is not happy with him, and the left is not happy with him, because the left, the socialists, the progressive, saying Biden is not going far enough, and the right, people on the right are saying Biden is going too far the other way. So that lets you know that Biden is probably in the middle. And for the most part, from what I'm seeing, is that Biden is doing exactly what we thought he would do. There hasn't been anything that I can think of that I've seen that has surprised me about Biden. People thought he was going to go all law and order. He didn't do it. People thought he was going to go far right. That once he got elected, he didn't do it. Now, did he put any boutique bills or signing executive orders with black people's name on it? No, he didn't. Now, did he promise it? I don't think he ever promised it. I think it was insinuated, which is probably why he didn't meet with Ice Cube beforehand. I didn't think he wanted his hands to be tied. But regardless of what he has said, pretty much on the ground, he has done pretty much what I thought he would do. He's responded to the crisis that I think needed responding to, from the vaccines to the opening of the economy. I think he probably wanted to move faster, but I think that he's been governing long enough to know that you have to play the hand that's dealt you. And I think he's done that. Whether we agree whether it's been played well or not, he's played his hand, and he's been pretty much down the middle, and he's been pretty predictable. So I don't know why people are upset. I really don't. I mean, I think the people that understand politics can pretty much gauge which direction he's going to go in. Well, because I hear the lefties. The lefties are upset they didn't push harder for $15 an hour. Even there, he was kind of middling. The people that are pro-black are pissed off that he didn't go far enough with policing, with defunding the police or police bills or stuff like that. I think that the pro-black said he hasn't gone far enough, and I think the people on the right said he's gone too far, which is probably right down the middle. So he is actually doing pretty much what a centrist president will do. Pretty much similar to Obama. They said he's probably a little further left than Obama, because I actually tweeted Dr. Jack Rasmus about Obama and Obama's policy. I actually asked him, was it more like Obama? He says no, Biden, because of what Obama did and the results that Obama got, Biden is probably a little further left as far as economic policy, a little further left. So Biden is cautiously a little further left than Obama. Probably necessarily so, because Obama faced a little bit different circumstances than Biden. Biden is basically in the middle of a raging forest fire, trying to put it out. So people say, well, why is he doing this and doing that and blah, blah, blah. And Trump didn't do this, that, or the other. Trump basically came into office with a relatively calm situation as far as the country is concerned. Obama had pretty much, after 8 years of Obama, had pretty much calmed down most of the critical things that went on in the country. So it's fairly stable. Of course, it can only be so stable after the 2008, 2009 But Obama had done a fairly good job of stabilizing the country. It was a perfect no. So Trump inherited a basically stable country, whereas Biden did not. So we have to take that into account. If we're going to be fair, I know most guys are not going to be fair, but if you're going to compare the two presidents' first year, then you had to actually compare the environment that they were president in. Okay, trust and believe, if Trump had a fairly stable environment, he'd probably still be president. But there's that. But anyway, that's all I got for this one. This is BGSI, and I'll see you guys on